Hey, everybody, welcome back to the channel that takes you deep inside the San Francisco 49ers. I'm your host, Jack Hammer. I'm here live at Levi Stadium, where today the 49ers began preparations for their Week 5 contest. Big game coming up Sunday night against rival Dallas Cowboys here at Levi Stadium. Like I said, interesting information today that we learned from Kyle Shanahan, the practice report as well in terms of the injuries. The 49ers and the Cowboys both dealing with some injuries. We'll get into all of that right now here on the 49ers Update Show. Deebo Samuel, Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, the latest on their injuries. Also, the 49ers bringing back a player that was with them during training camp that a lot of folks liked. Also, as part of that, releasing a player that a lot of folks liked as well from that practice squad. So we'll get to all that right now, real quick. Shout out a couple folks in Taurus GAV, Big Gab from Wales, member of the Toolbox. That's why he has the $ next to his name. He says, "Let's go Niners all day with the GAFA 49ers content." Jack Hammer, nobody does it better. Thanks, Gav. I really appreciate that. And if you're not sure what GAFA means, I think that means head coach in Welsh, something along those lines. And then Raphael 5629ers, another member of the Toolbox, says, "Good afternoon, Jack." Members of the Toolbox and everyone. There you go. Good to have you on board, Raphael. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to everybody for checking this out. The 49ers have been pretty good so far this season when it comes to injuries. They didn't suffer any major injuries last week in their Week 4 win over the Arizona Cardinals. In fact, the only injury was to reserve offensive lineman John Feliciano. Next up is the rival Dallas Cowboys, who have been dealing with injuries at key positions all season. Despite those health situations for Dallas, they've been able to start 3-1 and have allowed the fewest points of any team in the NFL. So that's really good stuff there. If you look at the 49ers injury report today, here's the guys who didn't practice. Linebacker Dre Greenlaw, he was out with the ankle injury. He was out all of last week, is out as well with the ankle injury. Was able to play in the game. Actually, I think he was limited a little on Thursday and Friday of last week. He injured the ankle still again in the game. He had to come out for a couple plays against the Cardinals last week. Elijah Mitchell, he injured his knee late last week. He didn't play in the game. He's a non-participant today. Charvarius Ward, the cornerback, he did not participate. He's dealing with a heel injury. This isn't a new injury, though. Remember, Ward injured his heel during practice in the run-up to the season opener out in Pittsburgh. I mentioned then on this channel that I felt that this could be something that would linger throughout the season, and that's why at the time I said it was a big injury. And in fact, here we see it still creeping around. We're into Week 5 now. That heel still giving Ward trouble. He's not participating in practice. You can watch him on the field. You can tell that it's bothering him at times. So Charvarius Ward did not participate today with a heel injury. Backup offensive lineman John Feliciano, as I mentioned earlier, he's out with a concussion. So he does a non-participant. Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey both had the day off today. Vet rest days for Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey been getting a lot of work over the first part of the season. Deebo Samuel, remember he was out of practice last week with the knee and ribs, but he did play in the game. He was out there today. He was limited, as was Joan Jennings. Got to see him back on the field today dealing with that shin injury, but he was a limited participant as well. The good part about that, though, is that you do get Deebo Samuel back. You get Jennings back. Williams, McCaffrey, they're healthy. They're going to be good to go. Dre Greenlaw, although he was not participating today, he'll play on Sunday. Elijah Mitchell, probably not. Charvarius Ward, I would expect to see him ready to go for Sunday as well. So no major injuries for the San Francisco 49ers as they get ready for really their first big test of the season coming up against the Dallas Cowboys. You know, you flip the script, you look over at the Cowboys side, they've had a lot of injuries along that offensive front. Their starting offensive line has yet to all play together in a game this season. At least one player has been out every week. And today, their big tackle, Tyron Smith, he's been dealing with a knee injury. He was a non-participant. As far as Smith goes, he's missed 2 games already with that injury. And it's a big issue there for the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. I think that has a lot to do with why we're seeing the ball come out of the hand of the quarterback so fast. I think that's why Dak Prescott, when you look at the numbers, he's getting the ball out so many short, quick throws. I think that's what's going on there. So there's that part. And then you've got running back Uncle Rico Dowdle. He was out with a hip. He was a non-participant. Cornerback Stephon Gilmore, rest day, didn't participate. Tight end Peyton Hendershot, he's dealing with an ankle injury for Dallas, was a non-participant. Wide receiver C.D. Lamb, he's dealing with a knee injury. He was a non-participant today, as well as right guard Zach Martin. He was a non-participant as well. Micah Parsons limited, Damone Clark limited, safety Malik Hooker limited. A couple of notes really quick on the 49ers. They brought back offensive lineman Il Manning to the practice squad. You might remember the 49ers really liked how the rookie looked throughout training camp, but then they lost him to Arizona when trying to slip him onto the practice squad. They had to waive him in order to get him there. Arizona claimed him off waivers to add him to their 53-man roster, but Arizona released Manning on Monday. The 49ers wasted no time bringing him back, so he's back today. And then also there were no other surprise additions really to that injury report. Really quick on that, on the bringing back Il Manning, one of the things there, it wasn't just Il Manning. They also signed running back Jeremy McNichols to the practice squad. And in order to make room for Il Manning and Jeremy McNichols, the 49ers had to release, it's a sad day to report, the 49ers have released the jackhammer, Jack Coletto, the fullback out of Oregon State. He was released. Kind of makes sense as to why they added the tight end last week, who out of Cal that can play some fullback for them during their practice squad in practice as part of their scout team. And then also defensive lineman Marlon Davidson was released by the 49ers today as well. So in order to make room for Il Manning and Jeremy McNichols, Jack Coletto, and Marlon Davidson were released. Practice today, we don't get to see a whole lot of practice now that the season has started. At this point, we only get to see about the first four pieces, mostly the warm-ups. After that, they go into their team and we get kicked out. It's going to be a real quick show today because my battery is going to die here pretty soon. But when you look at it overall, it was a solid practice. You got to see Deebo Samuel look crisp. Juwan Jennings didn't look like he's been dealing with any kind of injury as well, so they're looking really good. Nick Bosa was out there participating, a full participant today. He was working out with Cleveland Ferrell off to the side during the special teams portion. Brock Purdy looking really good. Actually, they had him doing a lot of downfield throwing today. It was interesting. Kyle Shanahan was asked by Larry Krueger today about Brock Purdy and how so many people are pointing to Brock Purdy as being a product of the system. And basically that's what Kyle Shanahan was asked. Would you say he's a product of the system, or is he playing at a high level? And according to Kyle Shanahan, what he said today, his response was, just got to watch the tape. If you watch the tape, he's doing it in a lot of different ways. He's been doing it all year. And I agree with him. The system's going to help him. But then also Brock Purdy's got to make the plays. The system can be really good, but if you don't have a guy that can get the ball out of his hand and trigger it, it doesn't really go anywhere. And that's where Brock Purdy really comes into play. He's been playing at a high level this season. His numbers show it. He hasn't turned the ball over yet in terms of interception. He did have the fumble week 1. So that's that part. Beyond that, you look at this game, and I think the 49ers are in a really good spot going into the game coming up against Dallas. Just very, very healthy at all their key positions. Dallas been dealing with some injuries. Dallas is going to be in a better spot than they were against Arizona. We'll talk about this game more as it gets through, but I really like the way that this game is shaping up for San Francisco. Hiram Wallace, member of the Toolbox. Jack, how bad is Mitchell's injury? Shanahan doesn't trust the other guys. His injury is enough to keep him out. They haven't specified beyond that. We just know that his injury is bad enough to keep him out of the game on Sunday. Bad enough that he wasn't practicing today. We'll see if he's out there tomorrow or Friday. I do think that Shanahan trusts Jordan Mason. Ty Davis-Price hasn't earned that trust yet, but Jordan Mason has. He's still a part of what they do, and we saw him step in a couple of different times on Sunday and be able to make plays for the 49ers when he stepped onto the field. So I think they're fine there. But yeah, Mitchell's injury, don't know how bad it is, but it's definitely bad enough to keep him off the field. And so that tells you a little bit about where we are. The Notorious Gav, I know he was a big fan of the jackhammer. He says, "Are you serious? We lost the jackhammer W2TF." Yeah, it makes sense again because of the addition at tight that they brought in last week. That's why it makes sense. Other than that, it wouldn't have. But they have a tight end that they brought in from Cal that has that ability to play tight end, but also play fullback. That's actually how he made the roster for the Chicago Bears last season, was by playing fullback. So, it's a tough break for Coletto, down the, we'll see if they do bring him back at some point. If Coletto doesn't get picked up, I could see the 49ers wanting to try to bring him back. As the season goes, that practice squad is always a fluid piece anyway. It's never set in stone. So we'll see how it goes. Jake Tongas was that tight end that they signed last week, so kind of made sense. Like I said, he made the roster last year for Chicago as a fullback. He's playing tight end here, but he can kind of go back and forth. Coletto, a guy who mostly in San Francisco is just going to be a fullback, so they get a little bit more versatility with Tongas for the 49ers scout team. But beyond that, it's a bummer to see Coletto go. But like I said, we might see him come back at some point this season. Just looking through the questions really quick to see what we've got. Blind Tom wants to know hey, how are you doing, Jack? How's life? Life's good. Life's busy, but it's good. Long drive back home tonight because of the traffic, but it's good otherwise. My son has a football game that just kicked off about 2 minutes ago. So I'm looking forward to hearing how that went. It's all good, man. It's all good. F.A. Jack, that's Johnny Dell. Johnny and I are going to be doing a defensive film breakdown on Friday. So keep it locked into the channel for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. What is the word on Luter? No word, Moses. No update on Darrell Luter. Luter, obviously the rookie, missed all of training camp. Still out. The 49ers are in the position now where they could bring him off of they could activate him. They could open his practice window. Same thing with Danny Gray. Neither one of those players, there's been no update on either of them. So don't expect to see anything there on Darrell Luter anytime soon, or really Danny Gray. I don't know if the 49ers really need to make any adjustments at their wide receiver spot. They're pretty good right now. Obviously Brandon Ayuk's playing at an extremely high level. Deebo Samuel's being Deebo Samuel. Juwan Jennings looks like he's going to be healthy this week. Ray McLeod, those top four guys really good. And then you add Ronnie Bell, the rookie, into it, and Ronnie Bell out there today making another one-handed catch during work with the receivers on a throw that was behind him. Reached up and grabbed it with one hand back here. The guy's just got really good hands. He just needs to keep working. And he drew praise today from Kyle Shanahan for his blocking ability. Kyle Shanahan, speaking about Ronnie Bell, saying the Bell plays with the chip on his shoulder. He rises to the occasion, and he's especially as a blocker, and that he's a really talented wide receiver. And you can see that quite often from Ronnie Bell. Also, the question was asked today about there is no update on Samuel Womack either. No update on where he is. I did see him in the locker room sitting down, but no update on where he is right now at this point. In terms of sacks for my son, he doesn't have any sacks, but he got 2 or 3 tackles in the game last Thursday night. So we worked on some pass rush moves, worked on some hand usage a little bit this week of getting those offensive linemen off them so you get to them. So we'll see what happens. I give him a little bit of send him a text today. He was in school, so I sent him a text so he'd see it when he got on the bus. Make sure he's ready to go for tonight. Really quick, just kind of looking through. The other one was, the whole Trey Lance question was raised to Kyle Shanahan, and it was a pretty easy answer from Shanahan on that one. He said basically all they have to do is watch the film. We've been here long enough. It's all out there on film. Basically he said, he kind of at one point said, well, I hope he tells them everything that he knows because there's a lot more that we have to offer than just that. So, I don't think the whole Trey Lance thing, it's an interesting discussion point, but it really is a nothing burger at the end of the day, because if you think about it this way, you have Trey Lance over there giving all the information on the 49ers to the Cowboys coaching staff. Well, meanwhile, the 49ers have Anthony Brown over here giving all the Cowboys defensive information to the 49ers coaching staff. So it's to me, I think it's a nothing burger. On top of that, Kyle Shanahan, Dan Quinn, these guys go way back. They know each other. At one point, Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator for Dan Quinn. So it's not like they don't know each other. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what to expect from the other. They've been playing together or they've worked together in the past. They've coached against each other a number of times. But it's a good talking point, I guess. But, really at the end of the day, the whole Trey Lance, spilling the beans into the Dallas Cowboys angle doesn't really get me too excited. Tabor Pepper, He's Mr. Perfect. He's Mr. Perfect. Jack, does Tabor Pepper make the Pro Bowl and how he's playing so far? I don't know if he's going to make the Pro Bowl, but he's a guy that's a tremendous snapper. Does a really good job. A couple of years ago, if you remember, I say he's Mr. Perfect because a couple of years ago, the special teams coach at that time talked about when Pepper came in for his tryout, he was perfect on his snaps on the for the PATs and those types of things. So that's why I call him Mr. Perfect. But the guy's a really good long snapper. He's a good player for the 49ers. That's why he's been here and continues to stick around. He's a good team guy, a guy that really fits into this locker room, and he's really good at getting his job done as well. So that's that part there. Just kind of looking through my notes really quick to see if there was anything else that we wanted to touch on. Yeah, Dan, the Dan Quinn angle about how tough his schemes are. Dan, Kyle Shanahan talking about one of the strengths of Dan Quinn is his ability to make adjustments as the game goes along, and also just about his ability to get guys to play hard. That's the other thing, and that's what we've seen out of Kyle Shanahan. That's how hard he gets the 49ers players to play for him. But Dan Quinn, he gets that defensive front really going. And I think that's the story of this game more than anything is the defensive front of Dallas against the offensive line of the 49ers. These are two defensive lines that have been very good at getting pressure on the quarterback. The 49ers just ahead of the Dallas Cowboys by 1 in terms of number of total pressures this season. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on both sides to be able to protect their quarterback. I think the 49ers are a little bit better of a running team. I don't expect this to be a 30-point game for the 49ers. I think you're looking at this probably more along the lines of what it was last week. I don't see a situation where you're going to see a lot of downfield passing out of Brock Purdy, at least early on. I think it's going to be a very similar game plan to last week where they really get that run game going. And then off of the run, you can play action and get some chips and things like that to get those guys open downfield. It'll be an interesting game plan, that's for sure. The offense, this is the best team that the 49ers defense has played this season. It's going to be the Cowboys. Cowboys allowing just over 10 points per game so far this season. And you look at what they've done, the shutout out in New York in week 1, scoring a bunch of points on both sides of the ball. I think they've scored 4 touchdowns, between the defense and special teams have the Cowboys. So I think that's a big piece of this game as well. You just got to not turn the ball over, stay within yourself, allow the game to come to you, and make those plays as they get going, as the game rolls along. So let me see where we are here. Real quick, we have the Notorious Gab says, Jack, how much of a genius move was making Brock Purdy a captain before the season started? I don't know if it's a genius move, but it makes sense because if you talk, every 49ers player that you talk to says the same thing about him. They all love playing with Brock Purdy. Today I had the opportunity to listen to Jake Brendel talk a little bit in the locker room. As soon as Brock Purdy's name came up, he's got a smile on his face. They always, they just love playing with the guy. I think that's the biggest thing is Purdy's the guy that they all enjoy. He plays the game the right way, and they all enjoy having his back as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this game plays out. I really think that you have a good chance here. Ninja Dom says, I feel like if Arizona scored 20 on Dallas, the Niners have no excuse to not do the same or better. Well, part of Arizona being able to score 28 points on Dallas was they had 2 really explosive runs. They had a 45-yard touchdown run from Rondale Moore, and they had a 44-yard scramble from the quarterback. They also had one deep shot similar to what they did against the 49ers last week. It all just depends on how quickly you can score and how good of a job the defense is doing at taking the ball away from Dallas in terms of getting the ball back quickly. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. It could be a game similar to that. The other piece of this really quick, when you look at the Dallas Cardinals game, I get it. They gave up 28 points. They only scored 16, but they were also missing 3 offensive linemen in that game. The Dallas Cowboys were. They're not going to be missing 3 this week, but I still do think it's going to be an interesting one. Rick Diaz saying that the secondary's got to tighten up. I think the secondary tightening up is a product of where they are in the game in terms of what the situation is, in terms of what the score is. The 49ers, if you look at the game on Sunday against Arizona, they were up by 2 scores. When they were up by 2 scores, 28-3, that's 20. They're up 14-0. Then you get a drive, and now it's 21-3. Then you score again, make it 21-3. Now Arizona scores a couple times, makes it 21-16. The Niners go right back down, score, make it 21. So and then 35. I think when you look at the 49ers, they do a really good job of managing the game on offense and defense. Really what they're trying to do is just make the opponent, when they're up by 2 scores, they're gonna make sure that they don't get beat quick. They're gonna force the opponent to move the ball down the field on them methodically, make play after play after play. And if a team can do that, then okay, you give up some points. But you're making them also at the same time run out of clock. And it's kind of a little bit of a balancing act. And the Hornets have been really good at that so far. And it is something that you can do in a situation where you're the much better team. Becomes a little bit tighter when you're playing a team like the Cowboys, who are pretty good on their own. Javon Hargrave gets another sack this weekend, yes or no? Put the Gravedigger down for a sack. Put him down. Nick Bosa, he has just 1 sack on the season so far this year. But you look at Nick Bosa's numbers, he's doing a lot of other things on a very positive note in terms of pressuring the quarterback, getting around the quarterback, hitting quarterbacks, those types of things. So he doesn't have the sacks that you necessarily want yet, but he's been a big factor. And Nick Bosa's presence on the field has helped open up the sacks that Javon Hargrave has received so far, the sacks that of other players around that 49ers defensive line and Fred Warner and so on. When you watch the film, it really shows up how much the teams are paying attention to him and how it's creating one-on-one opportunities elsewhere that the 49ers are able to take advantage of. So there you have it, everybody. The 49ers real quick. Let me run through one last time the 49ers injury report for today. Not too bad. Dre Greenlaw, ankle, did not participate, just like last week. Elijah Mitchell with a knee. He was out today, not a non-participant as well. Charvarius Ward, that heel injury that he suffered prior to the week 1 out in Pittsburgh, giving him some issues. So he was a non-participant today. John Feliciano, the backup offensive lineman, he had a concussion in the game. He's a non-participant. Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, both taking vet rest days, non-participants. Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings returning to practice today on a limited fashion. So that's where the 49ers are right now. They're pretty healthy going into this big game coming up on Sunday. Here we go. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Take it for what it's worth. Real quick, Notorious Gav coming in with a question. I got to get going because my battery's going to die. But he says, is Kinlaw looking good enough to sign a contract with us next year? Yeah, he's looking good enough that the 49ers probably want to keep him around. It all depends on what Javon Kinlaw is able to make. And he's really, I think, playing for a contract with another team next year. The 49ers are set with Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave for the long term. Kalia Davis is here as well. I don't think he's going to be brought back. But I do think that the 49ers like what they're getting out of him right now. He's playing at a very high level for them. I just don't think that Javon Kinlaw will be back, but who knows? We've seen crazier things happen, and maybe he does. So, we'll see. Thank you for the question over there, Gav. To you too. I probably just butchered that. It was awful. But hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Take it for what it's worth. If you guys can do me a favor, please hit that like button before you leave. After you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not a subscriber already. And then last but not least, make sure you turn on your notifications. Especially with this big game coming up on Sunday, you're not going to want to miss any of the updates right here on Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone.